Okay, well, I'm Jeralyn Brossfield, and you know, Robert and I, this is just a little brief who we are before we get started. Robert and I have been very health-minded, I guess, from the time we met. I met Robert on his 18th birthday while we were in line at a blood draw that was like a health monitoring blood draw at the academy we went to high school at, where I went to high school. He was in college. But the health focus that we've had for a lot of years included like making pretty good choices and, eating a lot of healthy foods, but there were still a lot of gaps in what was going on. And both of us had kind of crept up in our weight, not horrifically, but enough that we weren't in the healthiest zone, and had tried to lose it and found a lot of things didn't work. And so in my office, what was happening at the same time, because I had a full-time gynecology practice, is every one of us women go in for our annual exams. And I don't know if this has happened to any of you, but it's like you go in, and I was the doctor, so the patient would be sitting in there, and I'd be like noticing in my nose that the year before they had said, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds, or they had set a weight goal or said what they were going to do even to try to lose weight. And then often my patient's weight the next year was either, the same or more than when they had said they wanted to lose weight last year. And in medical school, they don't teach us a lot about how to teach people to lose weight. You kind of get told the same thing we're supposed to tell our patients: eat less and exercise more. But I had been like totally committed to coaching people around healthy eating and, getting to the gym. And by my sitting in the office telling people that kind of thing, maybe 3 people over my first 9 years in practice had like really stuck to a plan and gotten healthy and gotten off of medications and gotten to normal weight. But it wasn't happening very often. People didn't have a tool that was working well. So I ended up learning about the program that Robert and I now use to coach people around weight loss. And what I'm going to go through in the next 20 slides and talk about here was really the key to what makes it work to get the weight off for the long term. And then what we learned also is that people are way more successful if they're in a plan that has not only really great structure around how to eat, but also the support system of another person with you, like a health coach, and an education system so you can learn how to do this for the rest of your life. Because it doesn't end just because people get to a normal weight. There always needs to be a focus to some degree on how they eat. And you almost have to just build in healthy defaults for the rest of your life so that it's simple. So I'm going to go through kind of what's behind the process of eating in a healthy way. And this principle that we're going to talk about with sugar is sort of the basis of what you're going to want to know how to do forever. So what I'm going to talk about is, why is sugar a problem? Because we hear that all the time right now, especially as fat's sort of getting a little bit out of jail. I feel like it's kind of like eggs. It's not as much of a bad thing now. We know that sugar is a big deal. And we're hearing that all over. So why does sugar cause obesity and inflammation, and what can you do about it? So if we just notice in our country, and if you go back to 1700 and read Jane Austen books, they had pineapple as their only source of sugar, maybe once a year or something. I mean, they did not have a lot of sugar available at that time. And as we got into being a more industrialized country, sugar was available. And if you look just since 1970 or so, kind of here where you see this curve this line start to just almost go straight up, you see that we're noticing that sugar consumption has drastically increased at the same rate as our obesity in our country over the last 30 to 50 years. And if we look at obesity since 1970, it's just steadily risen. And unfortunately, it's still on the rise. Right now, more than a third of our country is obese, and another third is overweight. So 68% of us are either overweight or obese. And it's estimated that by 2020, it'll be more than 35% that are obese. So our rates of obesity and actually diabetes are going up at the same rate. Pretty scary, actually, when we look at what goes along with that for people's health problems. This is actually caloric consumption too. So in 1970, we were averaging around 2,100 calories a day. And now we're averaging closer to almost 3,000, 2,700 to 2,800 calories a day, it seems like. And so we certainly know that we're eating more or taking in more calories And that also probably has contributed to the obesity epidemic. Oop, I did something. There we go. You know, and I like to think, when I look at those calories that are increasing, one of the things we have to think about is like, where are they coming from? And I do think that our sugary drinks are a big deal. We've gotten very, very used to being able to stop and have a drink of any kind. And in all honesty, even though this picture is of Coca-Cola, it's just as bad if you're drinking a Snapple, or even, I don't want to say that apple juice is as bad as Coca-Cola, but apple juice has as much sugar as Coca-Cola. So even when we've packed our kids' lunches, and I did this for years, sending them a little box of juice, I was sending them the same amount of sugar as if I was sending them a whole sugar soda. But the number of pounds on this slide, so like in 1915, where it shows if you had a 6.5 ounce Coke every day, you would gain 8 pounds a year just because of drinking that Coke. And if you have now, in this day and age, if you have the 20 ounce Coke, you actually would gain 26 pounds a year just because of having a Coca-Cola once a day. So that's just the impact of sugar in that Coca-Cola. And in some ways, I think we can almost blame the caloric increase in just the drinks that we've added to our diet that were not as available in the past. So this is actually just showing that juice kind of is the same thing, or has the same impact, I guess I should say. So these bars, like this, is actually showing that a person who has 1 serving of juice a day, this is kids, kids that have 1 serving of juice a day or less actually had body mass index, so their weight for their height was at normal or below, whereas kids that had 5 servings of juice in a day actually had body mass indexes or weights that were way above normal. So the more juice in the day for the kid, the more they move to an overweight status. If you look also at diabetes risk based on how much juice you drink in your day, this is a nurse's study. And so a person that had juice less than once a month had no increased risk of diabetes. Persons that had juice up to 4 times a week had a little increased risk, but people that had juice more than 4 times a day had the highest risk of diabetes. And you just have to look at that and go, it's just the sugar, despite there being some vitamins in that juice. And, you know, I think a lot of us have thought, okay, if I was going to pick a healthier choice for breakfast, maybe I'll pick like a whole grain muffin or, a whole wheat bagel. And the trouble is that, a muffin actually has as much sugar in it as a Coca-Cola also. Coke has like 26 grams of sugar in a Coca-Cola. That's how much is in a Yoplait yogurt, and that's how much is in a bran muffin as well. So a lot of sugar when you consider kind of your daily content, that sugar is going to absolutely spike your blood sugar. So this is why that's a problem. And if this slide, and there's another one I'll show you in a minute, you'll probably see me show these slides multiple times, either during our calls on the challenge or in future conversations. But in fact, Dr. Anderson's book, which is kind of, our challenge uses Dr. Anderson's book and spreads it out over the 4 weeks so you can get it in little tiny pieces instead of needing to read a whole bunch. And his book is based on this principle. And this is from his book. So if the blue line is your blood sugar and the red line is your body's response to the blood sugar, so what happens if this dotted line down here at the bottom is like the low end of blood sugar. Below that, you're sort of in desperate straits where your body's going to try and correct things quickly because you're dropping into what we call hypoglycemia, or like a blood sugar crash. So if I were to have just orange juice on my way out the door, same thing would be true if you drink coffee the way I still love it but don't drink it anymore, and that is with a ton of cream and sugar. So anything that's just either primarily a juice or a sugar or a grain that doesn't have any protein with it, so a bowl of Cheerios would do the same thing. A piece of toast with nothing else would do the same thing. Grain tends to turn into sugar quite immediately in our bloodstream. So if you just have grain or a fruit for breakfast, your blood sugar is going to spike like this, and you can see it just goes straight up, way above normal. And your body's response when you have a high surge of blood sugar is actually to try to get that blood sugar lower and try to pull it down back to the normal range. So your body makes insulin, and that's what this red line is right here. Your body makes insulin rise in order to take this blood sugar and put it into your cells. And as soon as it starts to be effective, your blood sugar crashes pretty quick. And then your insulin starts to calm down once the blood sugar has gotten down below normal. The problem here is that you feel like crap. Like this is where you feel like you're desperate, totally irritable, looking for food. And for me, this would hit in my office a lot of times when I was walking around before I understood this. You know, I would have had maybe a coffee with a lot of cream and sugar in it on my way out the door. And then by 10 o'clock, I was in miserable, I thought I was stressed. Actually, I thought I had horrible anxiety attacks, and it was always around 10 in the morning. And I didn't know at that point that it was my blood sugar that was low. So then you go eat something else, your blood sugar spikes again. Again, if it's just grains or sugars, blood sugar spikes again. Your body puts that sugar away by raising your insulin, and you crash, and then you're hungry for lunch, and you eat a big lunch, and you do the same thing. Now, for those of you, you were talking about eating once a day, and I jokingly, but it's actually really sort of like tongue-in-cheek, say that's the sumo wrestler diet. Because if it wasn't this pattern of spike, drop, and you just never ate until the end of the day, and then you had one meal, or you had your one meal in the day, what'll happen is the whole time that the blood sugar's kind of down here, your metabolism has turned off, because it says, oh my God, I don't know if this person is in a famine that's going to last for 6 months, or if this person's going to feed me again. And so the body literally shuts off using the sugar from your cells and anything that you ate, because you're not supplying it anything. It's kind of like a fire going down to the coal stage, because it doesn't have anything to burn if there's no fuel being placed on that fire. So if a person's blood sugar is down all day long, what ends up happening is their metabolism turns off. They still have a sort of moderate level of insulin, and then they have this big meal, and their body goes, oh gosh, they finally ate. I'm going to store everything they just ate, because this person is in a famine and they just finally found something to eat. We've got to save it, because I don't know how soon it's going to be before they eat again. So whether you're in the once a day pattern where your body stores it because of that, or this pattern where your body spikes and drops, both of those end up having an influence to make you store fat. The reason you store fat is that the muscle cells can't store very much sugar. They can store just a little bit, enough to run a little race, but they can't store it for the long term, whereas the fat cells can store it for the long term. So they'll puff up and store the sugar as your insulin tries to put it away. And this is actually like a slide under the microscope of what it looks like when all the fat cells are filled up and the muscle cells don't have the ability to fill up anymore because of the way they're structured. So as we gain fat, we tend to deposit it both under our skin, but also deep inside around our organs, inside our abdomen. We call this deep belly fat. So the more deep belly fat we have, the more we make toxic hormones that make our system have high inflammation. And it's honestly the inflammation that's really the big problem in disease, because inflammation is the precursor to every one of our chronic diseases. It's the beginning of diabetes, the beginning of cancer, the beginning of a heart attack, beginning of Alzheimer's. So if we have a pattern where that blood sugar is spiking and falling all the time, and the insulin is high, insulin being high makes inflammation. So that you can see it here. If that insulin is staying up here because it's working all day long, it causes inflammation. And it also doesn't let you burn fat. So that insulin being high makes you burn the carbohydrates that you ate for breakfast, like that orange juice, and then crave more. So you get cravings and you're not burning fat. But if we could keep that insulin level low all the time and still keep the metabolism running, we would burn fat. So the key to looking at trying to create a pattern of eating that's healthy and would help you get to a normal weight would be to try to keep that insulin level low and steady all the time. And you do that by keeping your blood sugar steady. So this is the difference in a blood sugar in a person who ate what we call a high glycemic index meal. So a high glycemic index meal would be a meal that spikes your blood sugar. So either something like just only drinking orange juice, or A hamburger, honestly, actually still has more of this effect because of the bun and the French fries and a soda. If you only ate the meat with some lettuce and tomato, it would be more like this. So low glycemic is a meal that's got a balance of the protein and carbohydrates, whereas a meal that has more starchy carbohydrates or sugar than protein is going to be a high glycemic meal. So that's something if you're wanting to kind of keep notes. Sorry, my dog's going to add some 2 cents. If you're wanting to sort of keep notes towards the diet that you want to eat, one of the principles, and I'll show you a slide with this there later, would be to balance the amount of protein and carbohydrates that you eat. And there's a difference in carbohydrates, right? If you eat green vegetables, like if you eat spinach, salad, broccoli, green beans, those are carbohydrates, but they are what we call low glycemic carbohydrates. They're more fiber than sugar in broccoli or spinach. Whereas a high glycemic carbohydrate is going to almost be all of the things that are made from grain and most of the things that are made from roots. So like potatoes, even though they're not a bad food in the long run, if they're balanced with your protein, during weight loss, I would say moving away from all of the starches would help you because they all turn into sugar much more quickly than the green carbohydrates. So if you think of your carbs in your diet during this time of trying to lose weight as the green things, you'll be way ahead. This is a pattern looking at if you could make your blood sugar steady all the time, what it should look like. So in this case, the person eats a low glycemic meal. So let's think of, I'm going to give a couple examples for breakfast. A low glycemic breakfast might be something like 3 eggs with a little bit of spinach sauteed with them or a little bit of cheese with that 3-egg omelet. So you're skipping the grains, which can spike your blood sugar, and you're probably not going to add much fruit. If you add any fruit, I would say add citrus or berries in small amounts because that way you're not going to overdo the sugar. Another breakfast would be something like a Greek yogurt that didn't have much sugar added to it. Or in the program that Robert and I use, we actually supply meal replacements to kind of give a jump start to people's weight loss. And so people will be able to lose weight at the front end to get to their ideal weight. And then we teach all along the way how to do this for the long run. Because so many of us are so busy that like packing up 6 small meals a day is tough. But really eating 5 to 6 times a day, so every 3 hours, having a low glycemic snack or meal is the way to lose weight and also to keep your blood sugar steady forever to maintain your weight. So this could look like that spinach omelet for breakfast or a meal replacement that is balanced in the protein and carbs. Mid-morning, it might look like peanut butter and half an apple. For me, a lot of times I do a little protein shake as my snack mid-morning. Lunch might be a salad with a serving of protein with it, so like a chicken Caesar. In the afternoon, another healthy snack, either a meal replacement. I'll sometimes do a bar. And not all bars are created equal, but that's something we can talk about later as far as how to make some good choices on that. But basically trying to have maybe 10 grams of protein and no more than 15 grams of carbohydrate would be a good way to balance any of these meals. And then for dinner, in all honesty, anytime you eat off a plate, when you're trying to lose weight, the best thing to do would be to have the plate be a quarter of the plate protein and 3/4 of the plate vegetables. You're hearing my sweet dog sneezing. So like I said, a quarter of the plate protein, 3/4 of the plate vegetables, that's always your template for a weight loss, most healthy plate for your blood sugar. I don't mind pausing here. Does anybody have questions about what I've said so far? Is it making sense? I realize you're all on mute, but if there is a question, feel free to take yourself off mute to ask.
Everybody's unmuted now.
Okay, thanks.
So what I hear you saying is that when you look at sugar, especially with weight loss, it's even more important for weight loss than it is for normal eating. But anything basically that has a high sugar content, whether it's a muffin or bread or orange juice or a Coke, we have to start seeing them all kind of as an equal thing in terms of how it's going to affect our body.
Right. I did this when I lost weight, when we first started using this program, I literally envisioned all the sugar foods as if they were an IV with a blood, an infusion into my bloodstream, just straight sugar. Just because it helped me, like when I'd pick up juice, to think of it that way helped me sort of pause for a second and go, wait, do I need this or not? Because anything you do that you refill the sugar in your system actually stops you from burning fat really for a couple days. Any other questions? I'll keep going if not. So I put this picture in there just because sometimes when I show these blood sugar slides and we've been talking about like avoiding sugar, people go, well, gosh, am I only going to be able to eat, lettuce? I feel like the rabbit diet. But one of the things that I think we'll cover in the challenge, and I just want to mention it in case any of you want this as a jump start, one of the tools that's been really helpful for Robert and I is that in Dr. Anderson's book, there are color-coded shopping charts. So even if you kind of are like, well, which things should I eat or not eat when I'm in weight loss? Let us know if you're interested in that book. We can put a link to how to get it that's sold on Amazon, or Barnes & Noble have it. And we have it on a website you can order if you want. But basically that book gives you shopping charts that are handy because they show you all the foods that are low in the impact on your blood sugar. So if you were going to Google this, what you'd want to Google would be low glycemic foods, or glycemic index of foods is another way that that's labeled. And if you can eat foods that have a glycemic index of less than 30, they're going to be more stable for your blood sugar. All that glycemic index term means is how much a food raises your blood sugar compared to pure sugar. So if I had pure sugar and it would raise my blood sugar to a score of 100, everything else gets judged against that. So like lentils have a glycemic index of 20, and anything 30 and below is really easy on your blood sugar. Anything above 50 is kind of hard on your blood sugar. And unfortunately, some foods like French fries are like a 95. So they're 95% of the same effect as eating pure sugar. Or things like bread tends to be like 65 or 70. So bread raises your blood sugar almost as much as like 2/3 of the amount that pure sugar would. And a lot of fruits actually have a fairly high glycemic index, whereas like berries, like if you ate raspberries, have a glycemic index more like, I think, 25 or so. So you can really eat small amounts of a little bit of fruit, like a berry or a citrus, and not tank your weight loss. But if you're really trying to stay, fully on focus with your weight loss, you basically would avoid sugars, fruits, and grains and starches during the time that you're losing weight. So this is just a synopsis of what I've said. So low glycemic eating is eating foods that keep your blood sugar stable. Those are all foods with low glycemic indexes. And that means a balance of carbohydrates and protein. So if you're working on a plate and your plate had, like a 5-ounce portion of salmon and 3 servings of vegetables on it, so 3/4 of your plate's vegetables, 1/4 is protein, that's going to be balanced in the amount of carbs and protein on that plate. If you're looking at labels, the way to read that label is literally to look at the total carbohydrate number and the total protein number and see if they're at least, I like to say 2 to 3 in their ratio. So I'll give an example of Chobani yogurt. You guys know the little Chobanis, there's some that say simply 100 Chobanis. They have under 100 calories and they're like a little non-fat Greek yogurt. So those Chobani yogurts have 15 grams of carbohydrate and about 12 grams of protein. So if they have at least 10 grams of protein and no more than 15 grams of carbohydrates, so like 2 to 3 is that ratio of 10 grams of protein to 15 grams of carbohydrate, that's a close enough balance. You don't want the carbohydrates more than about 5 grams more than the protein. So if you're reading labels, look for labels where the carbohydrate and the protein are as close to equal as you can get them, and those will have less of an impact on your blood sugar. The meal replacements Robert and I use are a ratio of 10 grams of protein and 15 grams of carbohydrate with 4 grams of fiber in every meal replacement. So those can be used at any time to interject as a healthy snack or meal replacement. You want to avoid processed carbohydrates, and that's just because most of those are made from grains or starches. So like every cereal, every cracker, every bread, anything that's made where the starches have been, packaged basically as a processed carbohydrate and will raise your blood sugar severely. And you want to have a small meal or snack every 3 hours. So it's kind of, if you think about it, it boils down to two things. Balance the protein and carbs is one, and then eating a small meal or snack every 3 hours. And if you're struggling with that, that's one of the areas this challenge is really good at helping you with. There's going to be tips about like small healthy snacks, and that's something Robert and I do a lot. That is exactly what we do with everyone that we coach on weight loss, is help them do that. So if you were going to take away what I just said, to restate it one more time, it's just a small meal or snack every 3 hours, but every time you eat, having protein and having it balanced with carbohydrates so you're not overdoing the carbohydrate amount in the day. And when you do that, you avoid the processed carbohydrates, which means you inadvertently avoid sugar, or very specifically avoid sugar, and that allows you to keep your blood sugar steady for the whole day. I think that's it. So what I like to do is just make sure that...
Jeralyn, you could click on stop share if you'd like on the bottom.
Okay.
Then we can just go and have a conversation.
All right. What I was just going to say, as I'm trying to find that button, sorry, is just that I think learning how to do that is like a long haul proposition. I use our weight loss program because it makes it really easy for people to get in the groove with doing it and then learn all the tricks and hacks to make it easy for the long term. Mm-hmm. Robert and I have been eating this way for about 6 years, and we still learn new tricks and try new things to make it easier on ourselves. And our daughters eat this way. We really fight for our high schools here in the Valley to have to let the kids eat every 3 hours, because it develops a good pattern for the rest of their lives.
So ladies, I want to, does anyone have any questions, or was there anything that was kind of new, or was it kind of information you already knew, but heard it restated? What were your thoughts so far?
Some of it I already knew. I'm not a big sugar person, but the 6 meals a day, not the easiest.
So what we've noticed is one of the things that our clients, well, this is one of the reasons why Jeralyn, she made me a guinea pig about 6 years ago to try another program using a small meal replacement. And they're literally little 90 to 110 calorie. They're really snacks. They're very, very small, but they're designed to sustain a human body for 2 or 3 hours with 100% of what you need. And you can drink it, you can eat it. It's very, very simple. You can throw them in your purse and your glove box, and you've got some with you. I think that's why that system is so effective and easy, because it's hard to run around with a cooler with a bunch of little Chobani yogurts in it and eat every 3 hours, where it's really easy to eat a bar or a shake or a little bag of mustard pretzels that are high protein and have this little balance that's designed to help you lose weight. So I think sometimes having a tool like the system or the idea is a good thing, but having a process that works well is part of the deal. Would you agree with that, Jeralyn? Absolutely.
Because that's the thing that amazed me. I had had that, or part of that conversation with people for a lot of years. And I'll tell you, I am not always good at it either as far as packing food to go with me. At this juncture, since I'm not doing it for weight loss, I just try to eat every 3 hours. And so, I'll pack little Ziploc bags to go with me. And then I'll also still grab a couple meal replacements because they're a really solid, easy convenience food that I know is balanced. But I do think one of the things we've noticed, I think that was Amber saying, that's a hard thing to do. One of the things I've noticed, Robert, we noticed this with one of our clients that was eating maybe 600 calories a day when they came to us and not losing weight on that, is that if you're not eating through the day, a lot of times you're not hungry, and you can go for 8-10 hours without eating, and then you eat your big meal. And the reason that's happening, in people that have that scenario, Like I tell them, okay, I want you to let me know the first time you wake up hungry, because we're going to have total celebration. We're going to have fake champagne that morning because it means your metabolism just woke up. So people's metabolism that are tanked, if their metabolism is tanked, they won't feel hungry during the day because they've gotten their body into the groove of not burning calories during the day and storing when they eat that one meal a day because their metabolism has been turned off. So it ends up being sort of like a mental game almost at the beginning for them, because they have to just eat because they're deciding to, not because they're hungry. At that point, you can't listen to your body because it's been totally sabotaged by your habits for so many years that you almost have to force yourself to do what you know is healthy in your head until your body catches up. So I tell people, take their iPhone and set an alarm. From the time you get up, you'd want to eat your first little mini meal, like 100 calories that was healthy balance of protein and carbs, like ideally within a half hour of getting up. That wakes your metabolism up and gives you the best bet of the most hours of your day burning calories. And then if you eat every 3 hours from then on, so like if you get up at 5:30, eat something by 6, then you'd want to eat again at 9 and 12, 3 and 6 and 9 until you went to bed. And so I just tell people, and I do this myself at work because I get on the computer and I forget. And I literally have instructed all my staff and girlfriends to say, have you eaten? Because I forget to feed myself without a little alarm or reminder.
So thank you. Was that Amber that mentioned that?
Yes.
Yeah, it can be difficult. So I mean, that's why having a coach or having a system that is helpful works. So that's definitely something that support can help someone get someplace. Anything else, or we can talk more about that too if you'd like.
Robert, what do you think? I know that we just said we'd maybe speak really briefly about the holidays coming up and any tips with the holidays specifically.
Yeah, because Thanksgiving, I think, is Thursday, right?
Right.
Yeah. So if you're, like Jeralyn mentioned, if you're on a really structured plan, we always tell our clients, look, there's no right answers. You have to decide for you what's important for you. And if you are in a fat burning state and you're moving forward in your program and you don't want to put the brakes on, there are lots of ways you can handle Thanksgiving. We have a lot of clients that just stay on program. What we've discovered over time is that no one really cares what you eat but you. And if you don't make a deal out of it, no one else will. There's always ways to avoid it. There's always ways to get around it. And people don't protest too much unless you tend to make a little scene out of it. So you can basically just keep on going. Eat a vegetable and protein meal. Have the turkey. Have some of the green beans. Whatever else. Kind of avoid the stuff.
Vegetables.
Yeah, eat the vegetables. Eat the vegetables, a salad with the turkey, and you're good to go. And you can go on through it. We've had lots of clients that have lost a lot of weight through the holidays. Some people will take that day. Maybe they'll go a little bit off program for that day. When Jeralyn mentioned sugar, what happens to someone when they're in fat burning? So if you have that really balanced blood sugar happening, like our clients, they'll lose 4 or 5 pounds the first couple of weeks and a couple pounds a week thereafter. At least 1, sometimes 2 or 3 pounds per week after weeks 3 forward. But if we take sugar in, then our body doesn't need to burn fat anymore because it has sugar. So on that little holiday day, if we want to take that one day off, because Thanksgiving is one day, Christmas is one day. If you're Jewish and you have Hanukkah, maybe you get a little extra celebrating going on there. But for the rest of us, we would just have that one day, one meal happening for those 2 days. And if we just choose to go off a little bit on that day and have some bites of this or that, it'll throw us out of fat burning for a day or 2, sometimes 3, depending on what we have. And then we'll go back into losing weight. We might see our weight spike a couple of pounds, and that's just that water weight coming back, and we have to get rid of it and keep moving forward. So we can choose to do that, to have a little bit of something that might throw us out a little bit, or we can choose to have a Thanksgiving day and eat whatever we want. When we do that, it just takes a good 3 days before our body gets back into fat burning again. So it just depends on what's important to you. Because I have clients right now that are all losing weight, and some of them have big trips coming up for Christmas. and they're blowing right through Thanksgiving because they want that extra 3 or 4 pounds off before they go someplace and have their bikini on for Christmas someplace south. And others are going to have a little mini celebration or take the day off. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's really more about making choices and being really true to your choices, so you feel like you're in integrity with your choices and have that congruency, so you feel good about yourself, so you don't beat yourself up. Is that helpful?
Yes.
Yeah, this was a good, that was helpful.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Well, I'll turn the recording off in case anyone has any other questions that might be individually for you. And
Were you recording so you could put it on our team wall?
yeah, because some people couldn't make. We have a lot of East Coasters, so it's late. I mean, these are all East Coast. You guys, thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us. It's so late back in Michigan. You're all here. We have a lot of East Coasters and joining us this challenge, which is a lot of fun. So thank you. I'll mention one other thing too, just in case, because I really, Jeralyn and I, we love what we do. Part of what we do is we have a meal replacement program that we offer to people, and it's happening this
Tuesday.
This Tuesday,
24th.
the 24th. We just got an announcement from our company. They're going to have a Black Tuesday event. So in case you're curious about that, I'll just maybe send you a little private Facebook message in a little group. If you want to know more about it, let me know. But that's just a one-day event on Tuesday. That'll be announced tomorrow morning. We don't even know what it is yet. But essentially, that's our – go ahead, Jeralyn.
No, I was just going to say so people kind of know what to expect. Robert and I use a program that allows you to buy your food that gives you about 5 of those little snacks through the day, and then you make one meal where you make that plate I'm talking about with protein and veggies. That's where we see people, like if you're looking for the fastest road to get your weight to normal and help your body decrease inflammation, that's the fastest thing I've seen, and it's what's been studied. It's what Johns Hopkins uses at their weight loss center, and I've used now in our practice for 6 years. So if you're curious about that, generally it's around like $300 a month for all your food, and that includes free coaching and a lot of other support system pieces, but it kind of just replaces some of your groceries because you're getting all of your food except that one meal of your protein and veggies. So I think Robert and I are guessing, because the company's never done a sale on that food before, but on Tuesday this week, they're doing a Black Friday sale early. And so I think there's going to be discounts on people's first month or something.
Exactly. We don't know yet, but it's designed. The program's already designed to be cost neutral for people. So
it doesn't cost more than your groceries. It usually a lot of people save money compared to their groceries, but we think there'll be a discount Tuesday for some reason.
We are not attached to what anyone does, but it's certainly, Jeralyn will tell you as a physician, this is the fast road to getting anywhere compared to what the other programs she coaches other programs as well. And this is the one that's the cheapest and the fastest of commercial type programs. So with that.